Hey everyone, Oisty T here from Good Evening Eorzea, and thank you for tuning into my interpretation of Live Letter 51. Like I say, it is my interpretation. This is just my overview of the live letter that happened yesterday night really, in the UK, early hours of the morning in Japan, and mid-afternoon in America. So they had it nice and easy. It was due to start about 9:30 in the night. Didn't get started till 10:30, so it was about 1:30 when it got finished. So it was good 3 hours, which is why the video's not being done until now. I just needed sleep. So it did eventually start off. They showed off the Shadowbringers title screen. I don't know if they were meant to do that. Just there was some confusion around it, but they definitely showed it off. Really nice, different compared to Stormblood and Heavensward, but still got those very vivid colours that you would associate with the expansion. They talked a bit about the EU and NA media tours, so they had 37 interviews to do across both gaming journalists and social media influencers, around about 120 in total. So they split the live letter into two parts. The first half was general gameplay changes and battle system changes, and the second half was all about the job changes. So I will be discussing the job changes in a lot more detail in individual videos about the jobs. Me and Mr. Murphy are both doing a number of jobs each, so he's going to be doing some, I'm going to be doing some, and we're just going to be talking about the things that have came out about those relevant jobs. So some 5.0 details. So third expansion to be released on July the 2nd, June 28th for those who have got early access via a pre-order. Introducing a whole new world, the first which we already knew, where we have to restore darkness to a realm because the flood of light has nearly engulfed it. And they've turned around and said that there's enough content in there, which is equivalent to a single player RPG game, which means that there's a massive amount of content. 6 new areas which we have already went through. So you've got the Raktik Greatwood, Ilmeg, Amareng, Yulmore, if that's not going to be a city, Lakeland. I'm missing out a couple. They are on the Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers special website. Can't remember what they are. Raktik Greatwood, Ilmeg, Lakeland, Amareng. There's the one where the dwarves are, which is a giant mountain, and I cannot remember the last one for the life of me. Oh, I don't think they've announced it. Don't think they've announced the sixth one. New city, the Crystarium, which is what we knew. 2 new jobs, Gunbreaker Dancer, 78 level cap, gameplay adjustments, battle system changes, new items and crafting recipes. 8-man raid is Eden, 24-man raid is Yorhad Dark Apocalypse. New dungeons, endgame content for Disciples of the Hand and Land, Rothgar and Vieira, trust system for dungeons, Numu and Pixies for beast tribes, Titiana and Innocence are new powerful fours, so they sound as though they are going to be the 2 trials, the 2 8-man trials that you get, which will probably be around about levels 73 and 77. World visit system obviously already in place. End of 32-bit Windows support and support for 64-bit Mac and more. They did announce right at the end that there has been stuff unannounced that they will be announcing at E3, so keep an eye out for that. So gameplay adjustments. So this is a Fate. Now what they've turned around and said is that going forward, Fates will actually provide more rewards other than XP. So now that there's other ways of leveling, which we'll get into in a moment, they've added more incentive to do Fates. So you will have to meet certain other requirements, and then the tokens can be used to purchase things from the shop. So this is the Ilmeg shop. You can't really see it, but the things that stand out to me are for 30 tokens you can get the Raiden map, which obviously increases your speed in that area. Fate drop tokens can be exchanged for the various rewards. You'll also learn more about the first regional lore for the Fates, so that gives another incentive as to why you should go and do them. Not tied to the MSQ, but the more Fates you complete, the more items you'll unlock. Side quests are going to be level synced and can be taken at level 70, so all the side quests in 5.0 are going to be level synced, and the levels will actually scale to the player level when accepting the side quests. So it's there to facilitate leveling of multiple jobs alongside things like Palace of the Dead, Heaven on High, whatever the Deep Dungeon's going to be in 5.0. And then a new type of quest. So they showed the screenshot of the Warriors of Darkness, so you can see Arbit front and centre there, and this is going to be where you retrace the journeys of the heroes of the first shard. You do need to complete one of the quest lines in order to progress in the MSQ, and a lot of effort will be put into the role quests, and they will have special event battles. So you have 4 different roles. You have physical DPS, magical DPS, tank and healer. The new jobs will have quests from level 60 to 70 as normal. However, all new jobs will have a new quest available to them at level 80. So I feel that the role quests are actually going to be taking place of the job quests. So it's a little bit of a difference, a little bit of a tweak, which is something that we were talking about and wondering, so like me and Mr. Murphy, how are they going to do the job quests as they go through? Apologies for any jump cuts that happened during the video. It is obviously a big document. I'm still working on only about 6 hours sleep, so I'm just going to try and go through it in one setting. However, there will be some jump cuts. I'll try and make them as little as possible. So yeah, so like they say, the job quests are going from the 70 to 80, but they're going to the role quests, which, like we say, very different. It'll be interesting to see how they do them. Crafting and gathering quests, they've been consolidated into 5 sets of quests, and they will be based in and around the Crystarium. So you will have the facets of forging, crafting and nourishment for Disciples of the Hand, and the facets of gathering and fishing for the land. Hone your skills as you progress through the story of the Crystalline Mean and learn more about the world and lore of the First. You do see the Crystalline Mean more in the Shadowbringers benchmark trailer, which I will have a video up later today on. New UI updates, they're having a new UI skin, so they're going from the dark grey that they currently have to like a light tan colour. They showed off some in-game examples. It does look much cleaner. It's something that you can switch backwards and forwards of. You do need to relog in and out in order to apply the change. So crossword link shells, they're going from 1 to 8, which is great. They are changing the target's HP bar, so under 1% you can now see the decimal point percentage. So as you can see, Ultimate Weapon here has got 0.8% health. Part of this info will be updated. You'll be able to see HP more clearly. That is something where on the HP bar, you've now got a little down arrow next to somebody's HP to show that they're not at full health. And for housing enthusiasts, furniture placement previews are now going to be available. There's also many other gameplay quality of life updates that we will have to wait until the patch notes to see. So we then go on to the battle system changes. So the first thing that they talk about in the battle system changes is the charge action system. So a new ability designed for more versatile usage and gain charges for later usage. Not all actions are chargeable, but certain ones you can stack. So it means that your skills aren't going to be wasted. So the example they give is shoulder tackle, and they also talk about Ninja's Kasatsu. We've also seen that from sort of like some of the leaks that have came out of the media events, and we see it later on. Paladin has a gap closer, and that can also store charges. So basically, what it does is you use the skill, and the cooldown timer starts. Once the cooldown timer has went through once, you gain a stack. It then keeps on going, the cooldown timer, until you've gained the maximum number of stacks. So in this case, shoulder tackle, you can stack it twice. So you use it, you have 0 stacks, the cooldown starts. Once the cooldown finishes, you gain 1 stack. The cooldown timer will keep going until you have reached 2 stacks. Now what that means is that you can actually use shoulder tackle 2 times in a row without having to wait for it to recast. So it just means that you're not wasting usage of certain actions when they come off cooldown. So if, for example, they come off cooldown while the boss is in an untargetable phase, or while you're in the process of doing something else, it means you're not going to be losing the usage of that skill. They do show the dancer's dash move, which can be stored up to 3 times. Using the stack makes it go down to 2, and while the recast time is still cycling, once it goes back, it'll go back up to 3 times. Charges will also continue out of combat, so you will always probably go into fights with the maximum amount of charges, and they are based on the action, so some jobs have chargeable actions, some jobs don't. Casting interruption system was the next thing they talked about. It's already an interrupt, so things like stuns, silence, but it's not really clear what you can and what you can't. So what they've done is they've made it so that the UI now has a highlighted bar round the cast bar to show that something can be interrupted, and when it is interrupted, it will actually say interrupted on there. Tanks and ranged DPS will have role actions for interrupting, so things like silences and stuns, and role actions will no longer be customizable. They're going to have a set number of role actions for each role, and they will be the ones that you always get. So tanks are going to have 7, healers 6, melee DPS 6, physical range DPS 6, and magic range DPS only get 4. So, MP and TP were the next topic, and TP, obviously we already know, is going to be removed, and MP is going to be capped at 10,000, and that's because many MP costs are percentage based, so setting the cap at 10,000 makes it more intuitive to see how expensive they are. Piety still remains as an attribute, which only affects healers, and it will make your MP regen faster. Also means that the removal of TP means that using resources of certain actions such as melee and range DPS AoE will be allowed to be used much more freely. Main attributes and materia. Gearing up can be difficult depending on your role, is what they've identified, especially for tanks it's been an issue. So they've mainly looked at the accessory attributes, which is something that's been a topic of conversation in the community for a very, very long period of time. Tank accessories will have Vit and Strength on them. All the others will have Vit. Main attribute materia, no longer meldable. Main stat materia that's already melded will have no beneficial effects. Accessories are being buffed to offset this. And main stat materia is also no longer attainable either. So if you've got a ton of main stat materia, get yourself to Moot Mix and get rid of it, or wait for 5.0, get yourself to Moot Mix, and hopefully you'll be able to get some sweet 7 materia. What they have done is accessories and belts will now have 2 materia slots instead of 1, so it will make them a little bit more powerful overall, especially when compared to the fact that they were looking how people would use the token and savage gear and tome gear versus people that use the crafted gear that you can overmeld. They have also made major changes to the pet system. So pets are no longer affected by attacks. They don't have HP. They cannot die, which is great. Pet actions are also being removed from the hotbar and recategorized as player actions. So we as players will actually be able to tell the pets when to use certain actions. It does mean things like Titan Eggy, Topaz, Carbuncle will be revised because they can't actually target enemies anymore. So they did show off what it does mean. So obviously in this example, Ifrit has got Crimson Cyclone, Titan has got Earthen Armor, and Garud has Aerial Slash. They will all be combined under one spell, which is Eggy Assault. Battle system calculations have been changed, so how they actually calculate the damage. Media embargo for the Media 2 is May the 29th, so on that date we will start seeing more information about this come out. The calculations have been changed, so potencies may not mean what you think they do, so just bear that in mind when the embargo does get lifted. Chain bonuses have been moved from dungeons to standardise EXP gain, not an XP nerf. They did identify that. And the damage limit is being increased from 6 9s to 7 9s. Just for those enrages when you don't need any more damage. Since these numbers have been inflated by 6.0, they will have to be rescaled. So they did joke around that 6.0 is confirmed. Party bonus has been adjusted or will be adjusted. So parameters based on the number of players filling each role. Limit gauge fill rate will also be adjusted for 5.0 and later regions only. This was done because of how the limit gauge mechanics were being taken advantage of in raids, and how speedruns were based solely on how fast you could raise your limit break gauge. So it was people doing things like taking all their armor off, getting a really low HP pool, then putting their armor back on, and then having a healer raise, and then having a healer heal them back up to full HP, which gives them a boost on the HP bar, things like that. It doesn't affect anything from 4.0 and below. Barrier shields will also be displayed on the party list, so you can get a visual representation of how shields are applied. This is the screenshot where they showed you the down arrow showing that the black mage is at less than full health, and you can also see the 3 shields on there. So on the black mage, it's on their health bar, and on the warrior and scholar, it's above their health bar to show that they are at full health, and that's where the shield is. So the next half will go over the different jobs. So they did have a break there, which was around about 10 minutes, and they showed off the videos from the different fan fests as well as the different job trailers. So the job trailer came out and it looked amazing. There's lots of different stuff in there. Just while I remember, I did forget to actually say it at the beginning of the video. Thank you to Shintara Tani and Iluna Minori, sorry for scrolling down there to see your name, and everyone else that worked on the Reddit Live Discord thread last night. Great work as always, thank you so much. You make my job and anyone else that uses your live translations much easier when it comes to producing content like this. So they did play the video again with commentary over the top, so they did sort of like talk a little bit about each job as they were shown in the trailer. So Gunbreaker uses different magical charge cartridges. Whenever they execute a weapon skill, there's a trigger you use. So Mr. Murphy did kind of call it. He did say he thinks there will be a trigger button still, so it takes inspiration from Final Fantasy VIII Gunblade. There's lots of leaks out there from the media event that's saying that depending on whether or not you have ammo when you use the trigger depends on whether or not you gain DPS or whether or not you get a shield. So take that with a pinch of salt. We will find out May 29th about what actually is being announced from the media embargo. Bard had a lot of things to manage, so it's been revised. Shouldn't feel much different, but you can still execute your actions while moving around. Dragoon, also less to manage, jumps are faster. They also get a certain familiar red move, which is a giant jump. It's very similar to a jump that Astinian uses. Black Mage was a simple evolution. Biggest change is that when changed between Astrofire 3 and Umbral Ice 3, you no longer consume MP, and it also has 2 polyglot stacks now. Astrologian changed quite a bit with regards to cards, so all the card effects have been revised, and all of them now buff DPS. You still need to choose who to deal each card to, so a spell speed card would more than likely go to a black mage, a skill speed card, and possibly to a bard, or the crit card to the bard because of his how it interacts with his dots. Mechanics depend on combinations of cards as well, so that was quite interesting because when you saw them draw them, they could put them into like a little diamond, and by all accounts later on in the video they do say that depending on your combination allows you to use other actions. Samurai, another simple evolution, and II usage is clearer, so I think that is what they call Kenki. For the tanks, offensive stances have been removed, explained later on. Warrior has a buff that you can use on allies. They didn't say too much about Red Mage because they wanted to talk about it later, but they do say it's a nice evolution. Displacement has also been adjusted so that you won't fall off and die while using it. So I'm just going to push this door closed. Monk now has a 4th Grease Lightning stack, as well as an action that allows you to keep your Grease Lightning stacks up. Paladin, Gap Closer, certain action that no longer has cast times, or a certain action that you can use that then stops you needing cast times. I believe they announced that as Riot Blade later on. For Ninja, Kasatsu is a charged action, as we mentioned earlier. The split into multiple copy skill is Bunshin. Now, this was explained and talked about later on. I don't think that multiple copy skill is Bunshin. I think the big multi-shuriken attack is bunching, and I think the splitting into multiple copies is their new version of duality. However, I could be wrong. Wait for the media event for that. White Mage and Lilies have been changed. They accumulate over time. They also get wings. Scholar, in addition to changed pet behavior, as well as the big Seraph Fairy, so basically a Bahamut fairy for Scholar. They did say something about fairies function similarly, so it doesn't really matter which one you have on your out. They both function exactly the same. Summoner summons are now insta-cast, so no more having to wait for them to cast. Pet actions, player actions now. Phoenix summon, similar to how Bahamut was implemented, so you've got to go through a process to get Bahamut out, and then you do some other things to get a Phoenix out. Also, in Scholar and Summoner, something that was seen was the fact that they only have 2 Ether Flow crystals now. And by all accounts, Ether Flow is going to be an attack that comes out and actually gains you a stack, as opposed to the way that Ether Flow currently works. Machinist looks very different. There's lots of new gadgets, which I'm over the moon about. Gore's Barrel is gone, thank God. They do get a robot and a drill, as well as a flamethrower still. They get some kind of bio flamethrower. They get another weird thing that launches lots of chains. They've got 2 gauges now, a heat and a battery gauge. They don't have a hotshot gauge by the looks of it anymore. They didn't have an ammo gauge, and they do confirm that later on. Dancer revolves around the concept of steps, something unique we haven't seen in 14 before, so we want to show actual in-game demo. The in-game demo is amazing. It is definitely something that has got me interested in Dancer. However, the fact that Machinist looks amazing, and I still will main Machinist, has actually made me want to go back and finish off getting my Machinist ready for Shadowbringers. Dark Knight, Dark Arts is gone, and you can summon your inner dark side to fight alongside you. So it is free from the Heavensward quest lines. You've got 2 gauges here. You've got the blood gauge, which is what you had before, and then this new gauge here. Somebody's actually zoomed in. They've got a really good shot of it on Reddit. It is the, as far as I can tell, the Artifact Gear 4. It's the headpiece from there. And you've got the 2, which is the purple one's your timer, and then the red one's the timer on your duplicate. The video does also say that there's 16 million players in that video. Not 16 million players in that video, 16 million players in the actual game now, so that's a massive number. So, the next part is rebalancing job roles. So, they do talk about job synergy. So, in order to address the rigid party composition and how it's perceived, the synergy between some of the jobs will be reduced. So, something that they did talk about, something I didn't think was going to happen, because they specifically stated when Gunblade was announced that they dealt slashing damage, but it wasn't announced anything like it when Dancer was announced. All the debuffs are going to be removed, so slashing, blunt, piercing, they will all be gone. No longer will you want a Dragoon if you are a Bard because of piercing. Likely to be you still want them because of Battle Litany, but they are hoping that the synergy between the jobs will be a lot more organic, and they don't want it to be where certain jobs were essential. So basically where the melee composition for a lot of people, where they wanted Ninja, Dragoon and Bard because of the way they interacted with one another. There will still be synergy, but it'll be more along the lines of things like just the way that the jobs interact with one another, as opposed to job A buffing job B, which buffers job C, which means that those 3 are guaranteed needed. They did say dancers are more classified as a buffer job, so as a synergistic job, and that is definitely noticed later on when they do talk about dancer. Synergy doesn't go away entirely, just emphasised a lot less than before. Now, like I say, in terms of what we're going to talk about in terms of the jobs, we will go into more detail in individual videos, so if I do skip over anything, by all means, please keep an eye out on the channel to see what we come up with in terms of the actual jobs. So, the first one we're going to talk about is the tank role. They do say it's going to be a long piece of information. So, there was lots of debate about whether or not they're going to balance a couple of the jobs as main tanks, a couple of jobs as off tanks. However, they've decided that all 4 jobs, including Gunbreaker, will be viable as both a main tank as an off tank. It just means that if you go into a dungeon or a raid, really, or a trial, and you get 2 main tanks or 2 off tanks, you're not going to have to disband. You're not going to have to get rid of someone so that they can go and be something else. So they've decided to try and make it everyone viable as both. Job effectiveness will vary by skill, which we always expect. But it's weird that they did say that. There's going to be 3 basic categories of actions for tanks. There's going to be defensive buffs that can be applied to all party members, so things like Shake It Off. There's going to be buffs for the off tanks to support the main tank, so I'd imagine that an example of that would be something like Cover. And tanks can also use buffs to enhance their own defenses for a limited time, so things like Blackest Night. Offensive stances have been removed, so no more Sword Oath, no more Deliverance, and I can't remember what the Dark Knight, it's just not having grit on. You can now turn tank stances on or off, and tank stances itself have been adjusted. So damage dealt and received reductions and max HP increase effects have been removed. Enmity generation while in tank stance has been increased, so all attacks now increase enmity. Only applies to your attacks as a tank. Adjustments will also be made to emphasize the reduced damage received aspect of tanks. So with the change, enmity generating combos will be removed. Previously, players may want to avoid the enmity combos because they want to focus on their DPS capability, but with this it will change, because if you've got tank stance on, you're not going to be losing damage. However, you are going to be increasing enmity, and your skill rotation, regardless of being main tank and off tank, will not change when altering between the two. Tank Mastery trait has been added, so all damage received will be reduced by 20%, and then bonuses to max HP and damage dealt based on certain attributes will be granted when you gain that trait. So to recap, you want to generate enmity, so turn tank stance on, apply buff defense to yourself when needed, apply defense buff to your party members, and help out your main tank by turning off tank stance while being the off tank. So they do say Sword Oath is gone. Riot Sword will now have an additional buff where there'll be no casting time. So I can't remember Riot Sword having a cast time, if that's Riot Blade, but it may well be different. Sheltron has also been changed. Sheltron is now going to be a period of time effect as opposed to a one use only. Dark Knight is getting an AoE shield. One of the things that came out of the leaks was the possibility of Blackest Night being spread amongst the group, so that might be the AoE shield. Playing style doesn't change. A new buff will be applied when you use certain actions and when you use Fell Cleave, so that's for a warrior. And then you can use a special powerful move in order to increase your damage and do even more damage. Certain action buff seems to be in a release, but Aimi, the translator, did not say the full name of the action. I think that's going to be a level 80 massive hit skill. Dark Knight, the removal of Dark Arts is a major aspect. With the Dark Knight defense buffs and also the Inner Soul, you can now summon, you can now use them to increase your damage significantly. And then they do give a demonstration of Gunbreaker as well. So they showed off Gunbreaker, and they did show some of the effects that can have. So you've got a gap closer. They do have the in run, so it reduces the HP to 1, and it doesn't really say much. I can't really make out, but it is something that is basically your in run. 420 seconds is a 7-minute cooldown. So that is quite high, especially when compared to things like Home Gang. HP well over 6 digits now. They do have a regen that can be used, so if you use this skill in part of your rotation, you can get a regen. So the media tour did have streamers and influencers, and they did experience how Gunbreaker plays. So wait for the videos about that. That will be coming out next week. So I'm 3/4 of the way through the document that is there for the live letter. I again apologise for the jump cuts, as well as any additional noises going on in the background. The next thing that we're going to is the healer role. So they have been rebalanced to emphasise a more pure healing role. So all offensive actions have been reviewed in terms of their usage and how often they can be used, as well as their usability. But all of the healer jobs have been rebalanced to emphasise pure healing. No more protect, so no more having to sit there at the beginning of a dungeon waiting for the healer to cast protect. New actions will be added to address gaps in each healer's repertoire. So White Mage will receive an instant heal to mitigate cast times of other abilities. So at the moment, White Mage doesn't have an OGCD heal. However, that is going to be something that is going in. While it has powerful spells, it does need some time to cast, and you were kind of restricted on the mobility. But with this adjustment, you have more instant heals, so your mobility will increase or make up more time to execute other actions like offensive moves or prepare the next cast, allowing the management to be in a much lighter state. The lilies are going to be something that replenishes over time, but there will also be a black lily, which allows you to cast a powerful offensive spell once you gain it. Scholar, so like we've said earlier, the pet actions are revised. Direct heals and barriers will be adjusted, however the playstyle won't change that much. More healer spells given to you, Scholar can now work on more healing instead of focus purely on what they did best, which was mitigation. So they have been given a few more direct heals as opposed to just more and more barriers. Selene and Eos are now just skins. Both will have identical spells, just summon the one with the best appearance for you. As shown in the job action video, you can now summon the Seraph for a temporary moment and utilise it to cast powerful healing spells. Some are worried that the adjustments to Scholar's direct healing will make it overpowered. However, Yoshi-P has reassured them that it won't. Then they talk about Astrologian, so stances and card effects will be adjusted. Draw and card usage will get independent cooldown, so you won't actually have to use the card before draw comes off cooldown, so no need to rush using the card to restart the draw timer. All cards will have a relation on increasing your party's DPS, but the core gameplay itself will not change that much. When trying out the jobs, Yoshi-P wants you to look more at the play feel than the numbers. They did also show you what looks to be the big Astrologian level 80 skill where you get planets rotating around you, and then they showed you them casting a couple of spells, and one spell gave them the magical barrier of the Nocturnal Sect, I believe it is, and then they did another spell that also gave the regen of the Diurnal Sect. So if I've got those two the wrong way around, so it looks as though the level 80 skill is going to allow you to use a skill that gives both effects depending on what spell you use. So in that case, it would be something like Aspected Helios. So on to the DPS roles. So the design concepts have been looked at, and they are going to be much more traditional, and the mechanics of the jobs will then be revised accordingly. I've seen some people on Reddit turn around and go, oh, well, does that mean they can be much more boring? I don't think they will. I think what this means is that each job's going to be much more tightly compact into a theme, and I can foresee it actually helping because it will make the jobs that much more identifiable and individual. Yoshi-P is 46. I did not know that. So Monk, Dragoon, Ninja, Samurai, Black Mage and Red Mage are keeping their base Stormblood design and are just getting incremental improvements. Grease Lightning 4 was greatly influenced by player feedback. Skill speed levels at higher item levels might make Monk harder to play, so that might be something that monks have to look at in terms of their gear set in order to try and keep their skill speed at a lower level. No more Heavy Thrust for Dragoons. They did also look in the job trailer that the first skill is different when you use your combos. So it looks as though you've got one specific skill to use at the beginning, which will probably be something like Full Thrust, and then Full Thrust, and then it'll branch from there. Be advised that 5.4 you may not want to put too much skill speed for Monk. They did mention it again. Harakure also removed to simplify resource management, giving preference to using more Midare Setsugekas. Ninja's getting the threat management abilities removed due to a tank revision, making them unneeded. Quick note about the samurai: you do see him using Midare Setsugeka twice in a row. Be interesting to see where that's come from. So Ninja, all their threat management skills have gone. There'll be high level mudras that require special conditions to use. I think that's Bunshin. And the Cage Bunshin ability, which is the Shadow Clone. So I'm still unsure about how they're doing, what each skill's going to be named. Apologies if I've completely butchered the fact that that is the level 80 ability. It'll all come out on the 29th, which is, just looking at my calendar, Wednesday next week. They showed a Black Mage demo. So one of the skills that they showed you up was Umbral Soul. So it grants an Umbral Ice stack and one Umbral Heart. Can only be executed while under the effect of both Enochian and Umbral Ice. Gained at level 76. It's something that you're going to be able to spam during your downtime. So you'll be able to go into that brand new pull with full stacks of Umbral Heart. So you can use Flare or Despair, which is one of the new skills that they're using. It'll also mean that Enochian's not falling off, which will mean that you'll get Polyglot, as well as the other skills that were shown off as well. Xenoglossy is an instant for consuming Polyglot stacks, so instead of Foul having that cast time, Xenoglossy is an instant stack. MP cost of Ice Spells, Wild and Astral Fire is now 0. Despair, 10,000 MP cost. So it's going to use all of your MP and to single target Flare. Also works like Flare, so the MP cost not exactly 0, not exactly 10,000, but rather whatever your MP value is. However, 380 potency on a single target, going to be used in the open as I can foresee. Only execute while under the effect of Enochian and Astral Fire. So it's unlike Flare, which you could use while in Umbral Ice with a quick cast time to get you back to Astral Fire. This has to be while under Astral Fire. For Red Mage, Displacement gets a paired ability, shares a cooldown, same duration. That does not knock you back. Thank God. Red Mage combo finishes after Holy and Flare get an additional insta-cast spell to be comboed after. The one they demonstrated was Scorch, used right after Holy. Red Mage also gets aspected AoE magic, so no longer do you just have to keep using Scatter. And then they talk about Bard, Machinist and Summoner. So they turn around and say that Machinist is practically a brand new job. So when they were doing the design philosophy with getting of any more gauge is always a good thing to have. Machinists, they want to avoid unintended overheats, as opposed to in Stormblood where you want it to overheat. Sorry for the Red Mage skill randomly sat in the middle of the Machinist bit. Machinist image involves using a lot more varied machinery, so they've went from being a machinist that just focus on their guns to using lots more machines. So they've got chains, drills, robots. So they have completely changed up how they actually do the job itself. Just quickly on Red Mage, they did advise that your mana is actually going to start decreasing if you're not in combat. So you really want to have minimal mana at the end of combat so you don't lose a lot. Summoner pet summon skills are now all instant, which we've talked about. Phoenix is usable while you can't use Bahamut, which gives them something else to do as opposed to just that little bit of a boring rotation where you're just trying to wait for your next Dreadworm trance. Bard's getting adjustments to make it easier to play and reduce the party synergy impact of the presence of Bard. So songs no longer give plus 2% crit, which is a big thing because it means that Bard synergy has went down slightly. They're now linked to dot crits. Didn't quite understand where that came from, and by looks at never did anyone that was actually watching it. Now a soul voice gauge, which will be used for higher level abilities. They then showed off the Dancer live demo. Now this really did get me interested in Dancer because it's really different. It is really different. So when you start as Dancer, you think of the Dragoon tether, Eye of the Dragon, but it doesn't have a timer and doesn't have a tether. Or at least I don't think it does. I think it might have a 30-second timer. You use you use an ability to create a dance partner, and when they use an action, there's a chance that they would build your dancer gauge, which on the screen is the fan icon. Once a dance is entered, you can only execute dance step actions, and it does have a short cooldown. The timer on the small gauge is the remaining time of the dance buff. So as you can see, you've got Saber Dance here, which increases critical hit rate and direct hit rate by 30%, 15 seconds. Party member designated as your dance partner will also receive the effect, which is amazing. It's an amazing buff. It has both melee and physical attacks, the dancer does, and basically there are two different types of dancers. So there is technical step and standard step. If you use standard step, then this bar would only have 2 icons in, and basically you would just need to press the 2 icons that they have. If you've got 4, which is technical, you've got to press the 4. And then once you use them, it then gives you the buff. And once the spirit gauge of a dance gauge, which is this one, is accumulated to 50, you unlock access to higher utility dancers. And that was the job. That was everything on the live letter. They did announce that 14 is heading to E3 Tuesday, June the 11th to Thursday, June the 13th. So they're going to be on stage Monday, June the 10th at 6 p.m. Pacific, and Tuesday the 11th of June at 1 p.m. Oh, actually, no, sorry. So Monday the 10th of June at 6 p.m. Pacific, and that will be Tuesday the 11th of June at 2 a.m. British Standard Time. I'll pick this up on Tuesday night. Attendees will be able to go hands-on with Shadowbringers and facing off against Titiana. Keep your expectations low around this, so E3 presentations are aimed at non-players. However, there will be a live letter on Friday, June the 14th, which is going to be 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time at the Los Angeles headquarters of Square Enix directly after E3, so that's going to be 10 p.m. British time. There was some other information, such as a new left-handed sort of like keyboard mouse kind of combo thing, along with Eorzea Symphony. Haven't got that information on here, but that is my thoughts on Live Letter Part 51. Like I say, we're going to have job videos out on each of individual jobs over the next few hours or next couple of days, depending on how much we get done. We're also going to have the next episode of Good Evening Eorzea recorded tonight, so that's Friday night. That will be probably put up either this evening after we've recorded or tomorrow morning once I've got it edited. And we will also try and do a benchmark trailer recap as well. It's a lot of information and a lot of videos that we need to try and put out in a short space of time. So thank you for watching this one. Apologies for the quality and the jump cuts. I will try and make it as seamless as possible. However, I very much doubt it. But please like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications. And until next time, goodbye.